Welcome to the ISN Podcast. My name is Preston,
My name is Abby.
and today our guest is Mr. Sam Farris. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Preston, Abby, thank y'all for having me. It's a pleasure for me to be here. My name is Sam. Like you said, I'm a lifelong Etowah County resident and graduated in 2014 from Manatee, where I was born and raised. So I'm Mustang by birth and by choice. Went to school there from kindergarten all the way through. Really enjoyed my time there at Etowah County. Was really personal to me growing up. When I was 10, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and went through that journey. And my friends and the school and the community really rallied behind me and were there as a strong support system that I needed in a difficult time. And so I always knew coming through school that I was never going to go too far away because I just really felt obligated and personally connected to want to stay close to my county and my people and give back any way I could. So I've done that. I've been out of school 11 years now. This graduating class will make 12. And I just spend every day trying to do the most I can and have the most impact in my community.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so like I said, graduated in 2014 from Manatee. And at the time, I was on kind of an academic track in high school. I always enjoyed school and did well. I was valedictorian that year and didn't really have the opportunity to come to Botech in high school. There was a lot of other academic things going on that didn't free my schedule up enough. But we called it Botech back then. I guess it's ICTC now. But anyway, I had a full scholarship to go to Ole Miss, and I majored in journalism with emphasis in print and broadcasting, as well as public relations. And I started with a double major in public policy, but eventually got away from that and just dropped it down to a minor in political science. Finished in 2018 at Ole Miss in the journalism program. Received the Excellence in Journalism Award in 2018 from the university, and then also graduated from the Honors College at Ole Miss, and did all of that just as a small town boy from Etowah County in Manatee. Still didn't know when I got out exactly what I wanted to do, but I worked in related journalism fields, media fields, the whole time I was in school. When I was at Manatee, my best friend Seth and I, we started the Manatee Sports Twitter account when we were sophomores and just went to all the sporting events and live tweeted the games when that was still a cool thing to do in the pre-X days, I guess you could say. And from there, since we were at the games, we started being asked to take on additional roles like stat keeping. And then one afternoon, when one of the announcers was absent, they had me jump on the mic and fill in, just calling out the starting lineups. And that's kind of where my introduction to the media world really took off. It was not anything I thought I would ever do, and I wasn't very good at it when I started because it scared me half to death, and it was just a new thing. And the more I practiced and the more comfortable I got, the more natural it seemed to be, and that opened doors very quickly. It went from just high school softball and baseball to the year after I graduated, they called and were like, "Hey, we need a new PA announcer at football." So I was the voice of the Mustangs for 8 years at the football field. And through that, I made connections with reporters from the Etowah Times and the Daily Journal. And they knew I was going to be at all the games and wanted to make sure to cover Etowah County's teams in the paper. So they called me and they're like, "Hey, while you're there, would you mind being what they call a stringer for the newspaper?" So you're basically just a freelance reporter at the game. You're there, you send them a story. It doesn't have to be terribly long. It can be on certain weeks if you ask for it, but most of the time they're looking 250 to 500 words just a recap of the game. You send it to them, they give you credit for it, run it in the paper, and they pay you a little bit. It's not much, but it's experience. So I did that and announced at Manatee for 8 years. Whole time I was in college, and then when I got out, I interned at WCBI during my sophomore year of college and got some experience in the actual broadcasting and television world of media. Up until that point, I had only done PA announcing at games and then the newspaper writing, and I really wanted to get some broadcasting experience because I felt like that was the way I wanted to go. I still had some aspirations of some ESPN work on the horizon. Had numerous opportunities at Ole Miss to go write for the Daily Mississippian or be a part of their news station on campus, and I traded that out instead for coming home every weekend and working here and developing connections here in Etowah County, and that really paid dividends. Like I said, I did all those things through college, graduated, kept announcing at Manatee, got my paraprofessional certification so that I could work officially through the school doing different things, and that kept me in the athletic departments and involved in multiple sports. 3 years ago, I actually took an opportunity and jumped ship to the rivals at Morville. Boo, I know, but went over there to become a trooper and work in their athletic office. I worked with football, basketball, baseball, and softball at Morville, and now I'm working with volleyball too. And then, I've talked a lot, but the only other thing on my resume, media related, throughout that process was in 2015 because I had developed such a niche for myself doing the PA announcing with Mantachie and for various events in the area. When ICC had an open spot come up, when their PA announcer took a job elsewhere, I knew a guy who worked there as a sports information director, Adam Gore, great guy, great advocate for Etowah County. He knew my name, and he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, we just need a fill-in this week. Would that be something you're interested in doing?" And to me, going from a graduating class of 60 in a small town like Mantachie and then having gone to Ole Miss, getting a college announcing job, that was big time. And so I was a little bit intimidated and went to my first game and filled in and didn't think I did very well, but I guess I did okay because they invited me to come back the next week. And now I'm going into my 9th year announcing at ICC. And I do all the PA announcing for football and basketball there. And I'm also an adjunct member of their basketball staff, helping them with various fundraising efforts and community relations type things that they have going on. So I parlayed 3 or 4 different side hustles into a niche for myself and a professional outline that's led to connections all over the place and getting to meet a lot of really cool people and across the media world, not just here in Northeast Mississippi, but all across the state, people outside of Mississippi. Everything is connected together, and you'd be surprised the folks you get to meet and the opportunities you get to have just staying involved and shaking people's hands and getting to know them and learning their names. That was a long, drawn-out answer. I'm notoriously long-winded, but asking for my background is sometimes a loaded question because I've done a lot of little things that combine together and make one really long, big thing.
What are some other jobs that you do right now?
Yeah, so still involved at Morville, like I said, working with their athletic office. I've got the ICC apparel on. I work with them through football and basketball seasons, both. And then with the remaining time that I have left on the side, this year I got the opportunity to come over to IHS. So I came back to Etowah County and the high school scene for the first time in a few years. Again, going back to the connections, a guy who knew my name that I had never worked with professionally myself, but we had been in similar circles. He was going to be the play-by-play broadcaster for Z98.5 on the radio covering the IHS football games this year. He needed a number 2 guy. He needed a color commentator in the booth. The 2 previous broadcasters had retired after last season, and they were looking to replace that team. And John Luke McCord from over at Tupelo, he knew my name. Some other folks at the radio station knew my name, and they reached out to me to see if I was interested. And we sat down and talked about the logistics of it, and it was going to be a really good opportunity that I couldn't pass up to come back over here, which I live in Etowah County, so it's not like I ever left. But on Friday nights, they had looked a little bit different for the last couple of years. But this year, I got to come back and actually come to Fulton. First time being on this side of the river for high school coverage of any kind. And we got started last week on the road at Caledonia for the Indians football game, and a big time win for them to start the year. But that was sort of a new thing for me. I had broadcasted one game on the radio before, and it was an Etowah football game, oddly enough. One of the stops along the way that I guess I forgot and left out earlier on your previous question was while I was in school, I got called by somebody else who just knew my name from mutual friends. They were starting an ESPN radio station in Tupelo, and they needed some people to fill some on-air spots and some production spots, and offered me an internship that turned into a full-time job for about 6 months. And I ended up being the assistant station manager there and a co-host for a daily college football show. And part of what we did at that station also was cover local sports. And Saltillo was our built-in house team, and they played at Etowah that year. And our first football broadcast, I was the play-by-play announcer for that game. And that was all the way back in 2018, so I had been off the radio for any live coverage since then and only had that one game under my belt. So I was pretty nervous going in Friday night to that football game, but John Luke made it a really seamless experience. We meshed together really well as a team in the booth. It was a new skill set that I really had to be conscious of on the fly, because it's a lot different than just calling PA very general blanket statements in a stadium versus, okay, now you're telling a story on a live broadcast. It's not entirely unlike podcasting like what we're doing now. Podcasts are Q&A based, and it's more like a conversation between me and you guys sitting here. Well, a live broadcast like you see on TV is the same way. You've got your play-by-play guy, you've got your color commentator, and your play-by-play guy is kind of driving the car. He's telling everybody what he sees, he's painting the picture, and your color commentator is coloring inside the lines for play on words there. He's filling in some of the details and helping relay what the play-by-play guy says to the people who may be at home listening. But the idea is to make it this picture that anybody sitting there can clearly understand and visualize, whether they're looking at it or not. They're hearing your voice and the story that you're painting for them and telling, and it's giving them the idea of what's going on. So that was a lot different than what I'm used to, but it was a lot of fun. I'm really excited to be back doing that this year in Etowah County and at Fulton, following those guys as they go throughout the season. I think they're going to have a great year, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
I understand you have a local business in Mantachi. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually ties into all the media stuff. I know that sounds a little weird, especially because the business is a grocery store. So the name of it's Sam's Town Market. You got my name on the building. And we opened back in 2020 with the idea of just being like a little meat market and specialty grocery store. And that's still mainly what we are, but we've expanded to offer all the main essentials that people need in their homes for mealtime, fresh produce and dairy products, bread, a few canned goods, chips and drinks, frozen section, and then we've got a lot of local items that we bring in. We love working with local vendors, but the meat is really what drives the whole show there. I've got a great butcher in Scott Klaus, another Mantachi graduate, lifelong Etowah County resident. He's worked at several different grocery stores through the years and has developed a reputation for being really good at what he does as a butcher. And he really takes care of us there and takes care of my business, providing something that was a hole in our community. We'd gone without for a local grocery store that offered fresh meat and produce for several years while I was in college. And that kind of segues into me explaining how it's connected to the media. I was really focused on doing the broadcasting and the journalism stuff throughout school. And while that was going on and I was coming home on the weekends, I was seeing the impacts in my community from big box stores moving in, not staying very long, leaving buildings empty, the way folks, including my parents, were having to travel just to go get groceries on a regular basis, beyond just going down the road to Dollar General for two or three things, you know. And one of the stories I did in one of my advanced reporting classes at Ole Miss had to be a multimedia story. So it had to have video, audio, and a written portion in it. And it was with the grocery store owner in town who had made the decision to close. And he really didn't have a choice in the matter. Times had gotten that bad because of the stress financially from the big box stores. And I could see, you know, what it was doing and where it was going for Mantachi long term. And I felt like that was a story that needed to be shown to people because, you know, it's great having these low prices at these bigger stores, but there's a trade-off for that. And so I did a story on that, got to go talk to Mr. Alan Cates at Mantachi Foods, and he was gracious enough to sit down with me and let me video the empty shelves and what it looked like when a store closes and the emotional toll that takes on an ownership group and their families and what it means for their lives and then what it means for the community, what that impact looks like. And so that really was heavy on my heart because I could see how it was going to affect a lot of people. And I knew that aside from all of the media work that I was trying to get involved in, that I had aspirations to be involved in business in some way if it wasn't a full-time, I'm there 40 hours, 60 hours a week, crunching everything, just something I could be involved in. And I wanted it to be something that gave back to my community because, like I mentioned earlier, that was really important to me growing up and then going through school. The way the community, the way people like Coach Scott over there were there for me and had my back growing up, I wanted to have their back too in different ways and give back to them. And so I didn't know at the time when I did that story that it was going to be something that I would do, but it was in the back of my mind. And then moving a couple of years down the road when that ESPN phone call came to be on the radio station, that radio station was actually inside of a grocery store. It was a really odd setup where a couple of people had known each other and the grocery store had some extra space, and they built a little suite that looked a lot like this, except it was smaller. And we just had a desk in there with a few monitors and a mixer board and some mics, radio mics set up. Wasn't even an office in it. And we sat there and we hosted 4 different shows throughout the day in that station. But it was inside of a grocery store, clear plexiglass windows, so customers coming through could see us. They'd stop and look in the window. They'd come in and sit there and listen to us. And I got to see through that relationship how a grocery store functions in the hours when people aren't there. The 5 o'clock in the mornings when the management staff gets there, and the 9 o'clock at night when they lock the door, and all the different facets that go into that. And when the ESPN station closed, unfortunately, a few months later, as the assistant manager, I had the duty to go out and explain to the store staff, hey, we're not going to be here anymore in the suite. We're closing down. We'll make sure everything's cleaned up. It sparked a conversation with them of, well, what are you looking at doing moving forward? We had become friends at that point, and they were vested in me personally. And so we sat there and talked, and I told them I'd like to get involved in business while I was finishing my degree at Ole Miss. And so that led to them offering me a job to come be a manager there while they needed help. And I really got to learn about business in a small town retail setting, which, if you've never done it, never had a job in small town retail, that's baptism by fire. You learn a lot about people and a lot about the world in an avenue like that. And I had a lot of fun there, learned a lot of what to do, learned a lot of what not to do, and that's part of it. And I really loved it, though. And at the same time, that thought had come back to the surface of, my town that I live in has gone without a store like this for a couple of years by this point. I knew that there was an opportunity to maybe do that on my own after I was confident that I had learned enough. And so after I left there, when I finished my degree and got back into the media world full time and was doing some PR and some small business marketing, the conversation sparked one day about an open building in Mantachie, local owners that were looking for a renter. And I thought, that would be, I knew the building personally because I still lived in town. And I thought that would be the perfect spot to have a meat market grocery store that was smaller and easier to manage. It would, a lot of the mistakes that had been made before, not in just in Mantachie, but in businesses all over the place, as being too big, offering too much, and then not being able to sustain it. I had seen that firsthand in some places I had been, and that building that was available in Mantachie was smaller, and I thought this could be a really good trial run starter building for a business to see how this is going to work and if Mantachie actually can sustain it. And I knew Scott, as I mentioned, my butcher. I knew him personally. He's married to my second cousin, Shauna, and I knew his reputation as a butcher. And I made a phone call to him. I'm like, man, what do you think about this? This is something that's been brought up to me as an opportunity. And we sat down and had a 3-hour conversation one night, had a lot of similar ideas of what could work, combining both of our experience and what we were both good at. He had experience running a store. I had some experience in an office of a store, but my experience was more in PR and marketing and how to get something off of the ground and get the word out. And everything fell into place from there. I could talk another hour of all the things that we had to navigate and what fell into place to make that business happen. But everything, just long story short, God was looking out for us and helped us make a path to what we envisioned and what we wanted to see. And it took us about 3 months to acquire everything we needed and get it up and going in a little 2,000 square foot building. But in 2020, 3 months before the pandemic hit, we opened a local grocery store in Mantachie offering fresh products and a place for people that were making their own stuff locally to come in and sell it, like a little, excuse me, there I had a gnat buzzing around me there, a marketplace locally in Mantachie for people to feel connected, to feel like they had their own place that belonged to them. They didn't have to drive out of their way 10 or 15 minutes to go get things that they needed, not just on the weekend, but after work days and school days when they're tired and they want to get home in a hurry and not fight traffic. And then, like I said, 3 months in, pandemic hits. And everybody kind of shut down except for us. We were still open every day, and that was a blessing in a lot of different ways. It was another baptism by fire for us because we had to learn to do a lot of stuff quickly and refine a lot of the things we were doing. But it also jump-started our marketing abilities and our word of mouth because we were able to operate at a time when a lot of businesses weren't and provide people with things they needed at home that they weren't able to find other places. And from there, the story of Samstown Market and my business and my imprint in Manatee and here in the county just continued to grow. But it all tied back to the path that I was able to put myself on through connections with a lot of people in the media world. If I hadn't been doing the stuff I was doing at Manatee, to meet people that knew my name, that called and offered me a job at a radio station, I might not have ever thought about opening a grocery store. I'd have just thought, man, I hate that store in Manatee closed. I hope somebody opens another one. I wouldn't have ever had the idea, oh, maybe I should be the one to open another one. And my relation since then, since opening the business 5.5 years later, my connections that I've made through my continued work in the media field continue to fuel the store. So I pick up a lot of business just from the people I meet that either hear me on the air or I interact with them at a school somewhere and they want to talk about me and ask about me, and I tell them about the store and they come over to check it out. And they love what we have and what we're doing. So they keep coming back and they tell their families and their friends. And the schools get stuff from me. They know they can count on me to come through for them if they've got a fundraiser or they've got some sort of big deal that they need food provided for. And you have to nurture those relationships. You can't be fake about it and just do it for the money. People can tell the difference and stuff like that. And that's really what I hang my hat on, or try to, and what my business really tries to do. Our motto is providing for our own. And we take that very seriously, staying connected in the community. When people need something, we try our best to get it for them and to be there. And that's what my day job is. All this stuff with the media, broadcasting games and working with the college and the high schools, that's all secondary. That's my night job. I always tell people I moonlight doing all of that stuff. But during the day, you can find me at the meat market, or out and about, patting the flesh and meeting people that in some way relate back to the meat market or contribute in some way to our day-to-day business.
How would you recommend that a younger person get into the broadcasting
Yeah,
area?
great question, Preston. And there's a lot of different ways to get there. And I figured a question like this might come up. And you've heard I'm pretty long-winded, but I thought about this, and there's really three main points that I'd like to emphasize to anybody that's interested in doing this. The first thing, it's not as important what you major in. There's fields that'll help you be more prepared and get you experience, especially with the more technology gets involved with everything. You can be more prepared, and that stuff kind of goes without saying. The people interested, you can go major in journalism, or you can major in what Ole Miss and a lot of other universities offer now. It's called IMC, Integrated Marketing Communication. They blend marketing with a journalism track, and they give you kind of a taste of everything so that you're well-rounded in multiple fields, because a lot of these jobs, they want you to be multi-talented. They want you to have skills in different areas so that you're worth more to hire to them. You're not just tuned in on one skill. You're not just a broadcaster. You can broadcast, you can write, you can make graphics, you can photograph, you can video. The more you know, the better it is. And that's kind of the first main point, is diversify your skills. You don't have to be a pro at anything. That's what skill's for. What school is for, is to get better and to learn different things. But the more you're willing to know, the more skills you're willing to take on and at least be comfortable with and competent at, and then find that one skill that you're really good at or that you're really passionate about. For me, it was broadcasting. I knew that I had really practiced that and honed in on something that made most people nervous. They don't like talking into a microphone. It scares them a little bit. It's intimidating. For me, it didn't bother me. And I knew that that was a niche for me. That was my primary skill. But I was willing to take on the other skills, learning how to use a DSLR camera to take the right photograph, what a good photograph looks like, how to tell a story with it, how to use that same camera but set it up on a tripod and record an interview like what we're doing right now, except, I didn't have this much technology back in 2014 when I was learning how to do some of this stuff. You just got a digital camera and set it on a tripod and made the shot look as good as you could. And then writing is the big thing. A lot of people kind of sleep through English class in high school, but one of the most beneficial courses I had was English 3 in 11th grade. God bless Miss Brazel at Manatee. We butted heads more than once, but just learning how to write in different styles, write formal papers, but then be able to turn around and write composition pieces that are more creative based. You would be surprised how much that comes in handy, and then to be able to do it on a computer in different formats, because you're going to use that every class you've got in college without question. And if you're comfortable with it going in, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to not make any grammatical errors. You don't have to have everything, every sentence worded right. But the more comfortable you are being able to sit down and type out 400 words on a topic, it's going to set you ahead. When I started working at the Itawamba Times, they wanted, like I mentioned earlier, 500 to 1,000 words on certain stories. 1,000 words sounds like a lot to most people if you're not used to writing. For somebody that is comfortable writing, 1,000 words is 2 pages double spaced. And if I was covering a football game, 1,000 words would take me 45 minutes to iron out. And I've been doing it for a while, so that's not to say you guys should be at that level, but if you can get yourself comfortable writing papers, writing different styles, social media posts in high school, and then build on that when you go to the next level and start furthering your education and your training in different ways, and pick up other little skills, photography, video. You parlay all of those things into making yourself really marketable and really hireable, because all of the media industries are trying to figure out how to tackle the curve of adapting to technology being like it is now. Newspapers are struggling to stay afloat. Terrestrial radio is having to explore different ways to innovate, and that starts with their workforce being multifaceted so they can offer different things through their medium. So, point one, getting into multimedia for a young person trying to get in this career, be open to learning different skills. You don't have to be a pro. If it's a skill you don't really like, you don't have to do it every day. But be willing to learn enough that you can sit down and be competent at it. The second point, be willing to do the legwork. It's not always going to pay a whole lot. In fact, most of the time, it's not going to pay very much. But if you do the little things on the ground for whatever your passion level is, mine was sports. Not everybody likes sports, and that's cool. There's other ways to get involved and do the same sort of stuff. The Etowamba Times is dying for people that are interested in writing to volunteer and be like, hey, I'm really passionate about politics. I'm really passionate about art. They'll let you write columns and send them in, and they'll put them in the paper with your name on it. And any collection like that of stuff you can make up and then make connections with the people you're working with and for, they'll throw your name out to other people when openings come up as somebody who may be interested and may be competent at doing something. Same thing for the broadcasting stuff. There's multiple ways to get involved. Y'all have a great head start with this program here at ICTC. We didn't have this when I was in school for people that may be interested in media, so this was stuff we had to pick up on our own. All of this setup y'all have here looks an awful lot like the setup we had at Ole Miss when I was there. I told Mr. Nichols that when I got here. We used these Apple desktops. In the whole journalism school, they had the Adobe Creative Suite on them, and that's what we used to edit throughout all of our classes, whether it was Photoshop for photos, Audition for audio, Premiere Pro for video. We learned to use all of those programs at Ole Miss, and y'all have that available at your fingertips here at ICTC. And but you got to be willing to do the little legwork on the ground and hustle a little bit, because that's what is going to help develop who you are and your connections with other people. And those connections are the third point. Y'all have let me tell my story and been very gracious with your time. And I pointed out how everything has been connected. That's going to be true wherever you go. The stuff that you're doing that you don't think is important is the way you walk in the room, and your ability to interact with people. They'll make their first impression based on that, even if they're not judgmental, and they're understanding about the different types of people. They're going to go ahead and draw up a mock image of who they think you are and what they think your skill set's like from their first few minutes with you. But it's going to come up and matter later, and something that you do in one class like high school English or high school history, it may not seem like it's going to matter down the road in the long run, but there may be a point you can take from it that comes into play, whether it's a skill you're working on later or a conversation you're having. Remembering people's names is important. Every opportunity I've gotten since I've been involved in the media world has been because somebody knew my name. But it started with that initial legwork of, hey, we're going to start a Twitter account and just live tweet all the Mustang sporting events. And then that led to people knowing my name. And they would come talk to me and they would hear my story and see that I was really excited to be doing stuff like this. And they'd say, well, do you want to come do this? And then somebody else would throw my name out there and say, hey, there's this guy at Manatee that does this. He might be interested in coming over here and doing this. And that has come up over and over and over again along the way. The adage that you'll hear people like Mr. Nichols drop, Coach Collier's heard this before. It's not what you know as much as who you know, especially in this world of technology and social media, connecting everybody. More people have reached out to me through social media that didn't know me personally, but they heard my name somewhere and looked me up and found me and asked me about different stuff. And if you curate that while you're young and be mindful about your image and your name, it's not that you have to care about what people think and be altered by people pleasing, but if you have a plan or something that you think you want to do as a career path, something that interests you and you really want to pursue that, you have to develop an identity for yourself in that space. And the biggest step you can take with that is making sure people know your name, that they have a positive connotation and impression of your name when it's brought up in a room and are comfortable giving that name to other people. I tell my employees and my kids that who work for me at the store, they're high school kids like y'all, and I help them with their resumes and job interviews going to other places because they're going to leave me and try to go get big jobs. The little things you do while you're at work and the little things you do while you're at school get your name dropped to people who are hiring for jobs. Just like the people that work for me, if they're not a very good employee, I can't sign off with my name on a recommendation to them for a bigger job. That's going to be true in the media world as much or more than anything else. If somebody sees you out hustling, doing little things that you like, if it's sports, if it's art, if it's music, and they see you involved in that scene and you meet people and you're willing to make connections, your name's going to float on down the line, and folks that know you are going to recommend you, and folks who don't know you are going to know your name and going to call you, and it's going to open so many doors and make it to where you don't ever have to worry about what the next opportunity is because there's always going to be options on the table there. So do the legwork. Learn, be open-minded to learning different skills, and be comfortable in what you are good at and really hone in on that, but pick up those secondary skills too that just improve your resume. And then third, be mindful of the interconnectivity of everything, not just with social media, but on the daily, just how you carry yourself, the rooms you walk into, because people will remember your names. The people that you don't think are listening, they will, and your name might ring a bell to them later. But those are 3 steps that are really key to making it in this world, because the jobs are limited, they don't always pay great. So to get in the places you want to be, you've got to hustle, you've got to be willing to learn, and you've got to be willing to connect. So I hope that kind of helps answer the question in a long, drawn-out way. One quick thing that I want to throw out there, one of the weirdest things I heard in college, and maybe the biggest thing that I've ever disagreed with that I've ever heard, the dean of the journalism school pulled me in his office one day, and he met with several students. It wasn't just me, but we had been on a performance track that showed we had potential in the journalism field, and he wanted to meet with us personally. And he called me in his office, and he looked me in the eye. Great guy. I talked to him to this day, really like him, got a lot of respect for him, but he looked me in the eye, and he said, you're never going to make it in this field if you're not willing to leave Itawamba County. He said, I know it's your home and you love it, but you're going to have to leave if you're going to make it. And he didn't mean it to be offensive, but that was his way of encouraging me not to limit myself and turn down opportunities somewhere else. And by all means, if somebody wants to take those opportunities, do it. But don't let any idea, whether it's coming from home, whether it's coming from school, whether it's coming from social media, don't let any idea imply to you guys that because you're going to school at Fulton, Manatee, Tremont, Fairview, Dorsey, that you can't go be really good and be great at something and people not know your name. I'm not famous on a worldwide, national scale, anything like that, but a lot of people in Mississippi know my name. And I've never left this county more or less for the stuff I was doing. If you take out a year and a half, I lived in Memphis while I was in cancer treatments. I've been here my entire life. Coach Scott's been here his entire life, except when he went to Delta State, and people know him and his brother all over the place. I told his brother at his retirement ceremony a while back that I go all over the place, and when people hear I'm from Manatee, they may not know much about the town, but they know the name Collier. Most of them, they'll say, "Oh, you know those Collier guys that were good at baseball back in the day." You know, somebody out there gets to say they went to high school, went to the same high school as Taylor Swift, or you know, uh, Chipper Jones for the Braves fans out there. You know, all these famous people. Donald Trump, somebody went to his high school. Uh, you know, I get to tell people I went to the same high school as people like the Colliers, and people like Dr. Lance Evans, who's the superintendent of education for the entire state of Mississippi, and he came from Manatee High School. Um, so don't let anybody ever make you think that because you're here, you can't make it. You've got a really great opportunity with this program to learn the skills necessary to make it in this field, and there are ways to get involved locally that will not only give you many connections and many opportunities to thrive, but it will endear you to the people around you so that when you're not in a room, people are saying good things about you because of how hard you've worked and the opportunities you've taken advantage of here in Itawamba County. They're out there. And if you have trouble finding them, ask people like Mr. Nichols. Come find me. Look me up on social media. Go talk to Coach Scott and ask them who the people are you need to know in whatever field it is you're interested in. Because there's ways to do anything right here in Itawamba County. You don't have to leave to go do it. And I think a lot of students have fallen into that trap. My age, older, y'all's age, there's nothing for me here in Itawamba County. I've got to get out. And that's not true. My dad grew up absolutely dirt poor, didn't have anything, was left on his own when he was 14 years old, and enlisted in the military and used that as a way to pay for his education at college. And when he got the opportunity to go on active reserve, he took it and told him he wanted to settle back here in Manatee in Itawamba County. And he became a lawyer that had a very comfortable life and made a comfortable life for me and my brother growing up, and started with absolutely nothing, but did that all in Itawamba County and in Northeast Mississippi. And my mom, you know, the only time she's ever stepped foot on a college campus was for my graduation and my brother's graduation. She never went to a college class in her life. You know where she graduated from? The Itawamba County Vocational Center, as it was called back then. She came to a 2-year program here and was valedictorian of her class at Manatee in 1977, and didn't even go to the Manatee campus her senior year. She came to Votech. And she retired from Cadence Bank after having a really good career there that was comfortable and took care of her and took care of our family. And she started in the vocational center in the ICTC program and never left Itawamba County, except for when my dad was in the military on active duty. So don't think you can't be anything you want to be because you started in Manatee, Tremont, Fulton, Dorsey, Fairview, Banner, Evergreen. Add in all the little communities. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do from right here and go as far as you want to go, starting right here.
Mr. Farris, thank you so much for coming today, and we'd love to have you back next time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Preston, Abby, it was good talking to both of you. Hope to be back soon.